In the year 1818, the life of a rancher was tough. The weather was hot, the water scarce, and rustlers very much alive. And yet 200 years later, in the year 2018, the life of a rancher hasn't changed much. The weather is still hot, the water comes and goes, and the rustlers very much alive. Even in the modern world, ranchers still face some of the same old struggles. Felipe has been a rancher for over 28 years. He's in his 70s now.
Lo más hard de tener el rancho.
The hardest part, he says, would be from taking the horses to looking for the cows.
Levantarse muy temprano. Levantarse muy temprano. Agarrar los caballos. Montar. Ir a buscar las vacas. Arremarlas al área cerca del rancho para que no se vayan muy lejos. Esa es una de los trabajos más.
That's one of the priorities that he has to do. Bring the cows to the ranch area because they walk miles and miles.
The temperature out here can reach over 100 degrees in the summer. Ranchers have to make sure that the livestock can survive the heat.
Like at this time of the year, there's no water at the ranch, or we don't have plenty of water in the ponds. All that water is usually from the rain. So if one pond doesn't have any water, there should be 3 or 4 that are not having any water also. So he has to take the water from the forehand top, for that matter. We carry the water 3 miles, 2 miles.
Del canal, 17 millas.
17 miles.
Millas.
Sorry.
And back and forth.
A Gorilon.
At least 3 times a day.
I think we...
Per day. No, per day. No,
Per day.
No, todos los días. Per day.
Like if we go Monday, he'll haul like 3 or 4 trips up 17 miles and come back.
Ranchers have these different watering holes that attract livestock from all over the place. It's an oasis. Natural water is stored after a storm and collected in these ponds. Felipe has thought of ways to innovate his ranch so he won't have to rely on what little rainfall occurs.
We made like a water reservoir that's next to the pond, holding about 60,000 gallons.
The reservoir is covered in a thick plastic that's held down by heavy things found around the ranch. When it rains, the water from the pond will spill over a bump and into the reservoir. The water in the pond will evaporate, but the water in the reservoir won't. While evaporation in the reservoir does occur, the thick plastic will prevent the water from getting soaked up by the ground. Other ranchers around have also done things to help store their water. Because of the harsh conditions, food doesn't just grow anywhere like it does in other climates. Cattle ranchers have to stay on top of feeding their livestock, often hauling in bales of hay from other areas and hoping their livestock will live on their own while the rancher isn't there. Although the weather is the #1 problem Southwest ranchers have, it isn't the only one. In the 19th century, cattle rustling and horse stealing were such a big deal that they often carried prison sentences and often hangings. Sometimes they were dealt by the citizens themselves, who took the law into their own hands. After 200 years, cattle rustling and horse stealing is still happening. In 2007, around 2,400 head of cattle were reported stolen in Texas. The following year, the numbers jumped to over 6,400. In December of 2017, Justin Greer was charged with grand theft, investment fraud, and embezzlement. In total, he was said to have stolen over 900 head of cattle at an estimated value of $1.5 million. Felipe has gone through a similar problem.
How many cows do we have?
Ahorita, como 100 vacas, 2 toros, como 30 vaquillas, y como 30 becerras.
They're all branded the same, and they all have the ears cut with an upside down 7, 2 ear tags.
Tags.
Los
tags.
The female cows have a white one, the males have only the green.
Do you have any problems with people stealing the cows?
Oh, yes.
A veces.
We have ranchers that like to mess
A
with
veces-
somebody else's cows.
A veces sí.
And they take the little ones. Mostly they take the little ones that are not branded. There was a year, one year that we lost about 20, right? 20 big cows,
Más o menos.
more or less. We made a police report and the sheriff down in Fort Hancock. And we had to even get a sheriff from Sierra Blanca to make the police report because we did lose plenty. They never heard from anybody that had stolen them. I mean, they're not going to let you see who's stealing them, you know. They're just going to put them in their trailer and leave. That's the biggest fear.
Texas is preparing to pass a law to make stealing horses or other exotic wildlife, including cattle, a third-degree felony. Felipe is building a fence to keep his cattle from straying too far from his land. It's an open ranch, meaning that if cattle that isn't yours is on your land, that's okay, but they are more prone to theft. Sometimes land is run through portions of roads. When there are disputes between people, they often close the gates and the traffic is altered as a way to sabotage the rancher's route. Years ago, Felipe was able to ride this path, turning a smooth left. Now that another rancher has closed those gates, he's got to make a sharp left turn this path, and that makes things tough when hauling cattle. Because he's retired from his job, ranching is Felipe's sole source of income.
It's an auction. When the cow has about 6 breeds, the cow's ready for taken to the auction.
80 turn higher, 80 turn higher, 80 50 turn higher, 5.
And the smaller calves, that's the only thing he sells. He does not sell the female calves.
The cost can be between $80 to $3,000 for just one cow. The prices differ depending on the climate of an area. If there isn't enough food for them around, nobody will be looking to buy. Because of recent droughts in other areas east, nobody's even looking to sell. The ranch life hasn't changed much for ranchers. Thieves still exist. It's still hot. And the water is still scarce. But it is a way of life. While we're here in our modern offices and homes with nice air conditioners and where even our cars get shade, just appreciate what someone out there has done to get that meat on that plate of yours. It isn't an easy task to be a rancher. We can say that for them, the Wild West is still here.